does. And
Clean,
it does.
nice.
Okay, so let me just change the stream title real quick. Also, just so it's...
You know what, while we're here, I'm going to throw I'll throw a post up on Twitter too. Just make sure we have everybody in here.
Okay. NFT Guru interview time.
And I'm sure some people in your stream have already said hi. I'm not looking at the screen, but hello everybody.
Guru looks like the brain of every operation. True. Okay.
Oh no, who says that? Israel? What's up?
They're pointing out the katana, so you wanna, maybe we can just jump right in if you're ready.
Oh yeah, for sure. Give me 1 sec. Let me say, or just post this tweet really quick, and then we'll be ready to go in like 10 seconds.
Oh, no stress, dude. I'm not in a rush. The other katana, Kaka.
Wait, the other katana? What are you talking about?
No, the one in between.
This katana?
Oh.
Or potentially this katana?
Oh. Hi. I'm not okay.
And I'm sure, yeah, you guys did already ask. Yes, I am a samurai. No katana giveaways. I cannot do that. Those are my babies. Anybody who knows, the katana is an extension of one's soul. I can't just give away a piece of my soul now. That would make me a sellout, right?
Good businessman sell out, to each his own. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let me know when you're ready, Guru, and we can proceed.
I am ready whenever.
Okay. So, just to tell the audience the kind of format of the discussion, we're gonna have a few warm-up questions, just get to know you a little bit better, about yourself, about NTTM, and a little bit about your background. And then we'll move on to maybe some more deeper questions about maybe life in general, triumphs and struggles. And lastly, we'll talk more about Axie, right? And kind of your journey throughout Axie and your perspective and how maybe your worldview comes to shape how you execute ideas within Axie. So, without further ado, I think we can just begin. So could you maybe give us a short introduction about yourself? I know you're not new to the stream, but just for the new folks that are in here.
Yeah, for sure. So, yes, first things first, thank you everybody for having me. I know you guys got a great community here. Mystic, first time we ever had a opportunity to chat with each other. It came after one of my tangents, but it was a really good opportunity to get to know you in a nutshell, and I could tell right away that we were gonna jive. So that being said, I am NFTGuru. So I was previously known as Method to the Mythos. That was my YouTube channel that I started a few months back, focusing on Axie Infinity content. Well, that ended up becoming the name of my Discord, the name of my community, and at a certain point, I had to make a decision to change my name, so I am now currently NFTGuru, but I'm most well known for Method to the Mythos. I am the founder of that community. We are a community that does a few things right. Like, I'm not going to say we're the top community in Axie by any means, but we do definitely put our best out there to be a very nice, inclusive, capable, and, helpful, like a place where people can come in and grow, get a really good, honest, genuine opportunity to come into Axie Infinity and make the most of it. So that's how I'm best known now. Now I do stream on YouTube, not on Twitch, unfortunately. All you Twitch guys might not know me as well, but I have a YouTube channel, NFTGuru, where I post videos all about breeding, gameplay, strategy, and a few of these awesome interviews that I get to have with people like Mystic.
Cool. So I guess what inspired the name change? Oh, first of all, can you just give us maybe some insight to MTTM method? Like what inspired the name? Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Are you ready for a tiny tangent? Because it's 100%. Gonna come.
We're ready.
All right. Let's do this. So, Method to the Mythos, and I have a video coming out very soon that's gonna explain this, but you guys get a sneak peek. It was actually originally the name of a podcast that I was co-hosting with a very longtime friend of mine. And the idea of the podcast was to look at some of the things in society that most people, they just really don't know much about. They have a hard time either wrapping their heads around the system. It might be something that I'm not going to say is taboo per se, but not something that's in the common knowledge spectrum or paradigm of our day-to-day lives. And we were going to go in there, him being a religious studies major and me being a business major, and we were going to break it down, analyze it, talk about it, and give people the method to the mythos. Mythos in this case referring to, and you can search this up by definition, the secret practices or secretive arts or anything that's just really unknown. Not mythos as in like dragons and stuff. So just to clear that up. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, and I mean life happens, doesn't bother me too much anymore, my partner ended up going his own way, and I was then stuck with a YouTube channel that I was posting a few Axie vids on that were popping off, and I didn't want to give up. So I just kind of ran with it. And Method to the Mythos is, I think it's a great name. I love it. I think it applies to blockchain, ironically, in such a good way, because most people don't really know what's going on in the blockchain, and we provide that clarity to it. We provide the method to the mythos. But to give you a one-liner on how the name came to be, it came to me in a shower. So I was listening to a song in the shower, and the hook hit, and it said, "What's your method?" And I had been crunching the name for the podcast for the longest time, and then it just came to me, and I was like, all right, we're going with this then. And it kind of stuck. My partner was okay with it. We ran with it.
Beautiful. I mean, that wasn't a tangent at all, bro. I mean, so you mentioned podcasting, and I mean, it's totally clear hearing your voice and hearing your eloquent way of speaking. What other kind of things can we maybe dig out of you that may not be apparent? So that was something, and then obviously the katana's behind you.
Okay, so I think your chat said that my video stopped, by the way, which I see on your screen. It stopped without me having a stupid face, so I'm happy. Usually people pause on my goofy faces, but I will definitely give you a little bit more feedback on that.
Let's just fix that real quick. I might have to recall you.
No problem.
Okay, it should work. Yeah, sorry. Well, different story. We'll talk about that later, but I think we're good now. So.
Okay. Rephrase it for me one more time.
So I guess we've learned in the last 2 minutes of our discussion that you've had a podcast and you're a business major and kind of you have many katanas also. So maybe another tidbit of just something personal that you would like to describe about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So anybody who knows me knows I'm very business oriented. Actually, for the longest time in the earlier part of this year, I was juggling a couple of businesses, which was really tough. I had a consulting business that I co-founded in 2020 that was doing very well. My partner was a really, really close contact of mine, and I had been working on scaling that business almost as like the sole contributor at times on my end of the business, which was the consulting side. On top of that, I had also run quite a few e-commerce stores back in the e-commerce bubble of the Amazon days. So I had a knack for knowing how to market things, start things up. And it's always tough because you're wearing a lot of hats. And then, of course, earlier in this year, I had started the podcast with my partner. And at the same time, I also started my apparel company, which is Project Arcana. If you look up over here where the sword is, you can see a symbol of an A. That is actually the logo for my apparel company, which is Project Arcana. So I have a couple of businesses, 3 of which I was trying to juggle because Axie is most certainly worthy of being called a business. And just recently, I actually chose to step back from my consulting firm because it was taking a lot of my time. And I just felt like everything that I was doing at that point in time, 90 to 95% of it was focused on what we're doing here in the metaverse. And I couldn't not try and follow my passion in that regard. So I did decide to step back from that. But the katanas, I'm sure you guys are all curious about it. So to answer your question, yes, I am a samurai. When I was 8 years old, I got my very first katana, and it was just a birthday gift from my father, actually. He'd gotten me a tiny little wooden katana, and I held it in my hands, and that's where it all started, man. I swear, when I held it, it just felt right. I was holding it. It was like, I had that whole, at the time I was a real big cartoon fanatic, Dragon Ball Z, all that good stuff, Naruto. So I was like, oh, this is mine. This is my spirit. This is my calling. What you would expect of an 8-year-old. But I did end up really committing to the discipline of learning the sword, which I think was what allowed me to actually go and follow the path of a samurai. Because it's hard to come and say you're a samurai. A lot of people seeing me, being a Caucasian individual saying that, they'd be like, oh man, what? What, you go and cut water jugs on YouTube or something? No. When I was 8 years old, I started practicing in the sword. I now have 2 black belts. one of which you can actually see up there I have displayed with my gi, and that practice is Heidong Komdo, which is a Korean sword art. So I had my black belt in Heidong Komdo, and then my second black belt was actually in an art of ninjutsu, which was Furoshin Ninjutsu. So very, very unique mix. I could spend hours going over everything I learned as a samurai as well as a ninja, but I think ultimately it was more of a spiritual practice for me than it was a physical practice. Even to this day, I don't go a day without holding my sword in my hand because it's a part of my routine, right? The moment I have it in my hands, and I practice with a live blade now. I don't recommend most people do it. Just get one of these simple wooden ones if you're interested. They don't kill people as easy, and it's an incredible opportunity for me to just get out of my struggles of my day-to-day life, put myself into that art, and really take myself to a level of concentration and focus that allows me to focus on things that are really deep problems or deep self-searching questions that I'm trying to consider.
Very interesting. I guess something that stuck out to me just now is, could you briefly describe the differences between the two different sword arts that you described? I mean, I'm not familiar with either, so giving some context behind either one would be great.
Oh, for sure. So, Haidang Kamdo is a very traditional samurai art. It's based in Korea, though. It is not a Japanese art. So, unfortunately, I was not a big fan of kendo, nor did I have a really good kendo dojo near me to practice. So, I went with Haidang Kamdo. Well, the nice thing about it is that unlike a lot of sword arts these days, which are more of a sport, they practice on hits, they're a little bit less of a martial art and more of a practiced art that you would go and actually score in a competition with. Haidong Kamdo was traditional. A lot of the patterns that you did were very, very traditional patterns that were meant to defend yourself in the event that you were in a life or death battle with the sword. And I think that side of it, not trying to say that, the really dangerous and fatal side of it was the number one importance, but I think it was important for me to understand the more traditional side of it. So that was very traditional. And then Furoshin Ninjutsu was very interesting. So one thing about ninjutsu in comparison to samurai arts is that they're very tool focused. A lot of it is not, I'm swinging a sword around to be a real awesome swordsman. It's, I'm using this sword, and you can tell actually because, oh my goodness, should I pull the other one out? I have a fourth sword, by the way, but yep. No, okay, I won't.
Pull out all the swords. We want to see all of your swords, dude.
Okay. And then this one is, it's far away. I'd have to go and get it. But let me just describe it to you. It's a straight blade. It's a little bit shorter than a traditional katana, and the blade is straight. So it's more of a tool than it is a weapon, probably 80% of the time. And that was an interesting thing to change because I was practicing in a traditional way, which is all about arm movements, footwork, swinging the sword around, keeping your momentum and your control of the pattern. While ninjutsu was a lot more about meditation, different practiced arts. One of them that was super cool actually, because it was more mind focused, was if you have something swung at you, your natural reaction is the moment it hits your peripherals or becomes something that you can react to, your body is going to have a jerked reaction to it. But you can actually kind of break that down and you can start to control it a little bit more. And it's a really interesting process they use for it, where they would actually have foam bladed swords and they would swing them at us and you could not move until you were given a signal from the teacher. And that signal came way later than you as a person wanted it to come. So you would have these scenarios where you're like, oh no, I'm gonna get hit, and you would flinch, and it was wrong. You had to run it back again and run it back again until you moved at the right time. And doing that over and over again allowed you to stay a lot more conscious of what your body was doing in those moments. And it was super, super cool, actually. I thought it was one of the coolest things I ever learned. But yes, to make it as easy to understand as possible, one was traditional and focused around the sword. The other was a little bit more contemporary, and it focused a lot more around the mind and the usage of the tools.
Very interesting. I mean, something that I could just maybe build off of that is, it's like the mindfulness aspect, right? It really resonated with me, the way your training was was actually very rigorous, right? And it forced you to essentially rewire the what's the word I'm looking for? Instinct that you might have, and retrain this. And I think that might be in part why you're such a successful investor, because essentially you're playing against psychology, right? You're playing against, and to do that isn't trivial. And I think that's what a lot of novice investors come through they come to an understanding of like normally they come during peak euphoria, right, where they see everyone around them making money, and it's to hedge against that human psychology that we kind of succumb ourselves to. I mean, it sounds like what the experiences you had were very practical, you know. It sounds very interesting.
You know, I made a Twitter post a while back, and I don't know if you saw it, but I was reacting to one of the founders of the Forest Project's statements where he talked about composure. And it was a very, short one-liner, but it came from that practice. And it said that composure and courage is a muscle, and it needs to be trained over time. And I agree with that completely. You know, when I got into investing, I've been in traditional investing now for, 3.5, almost 4 years. And it's been an emotional roller coaster, right? But one of the biggest things that kept me successful outside of being able to actually research and do my due diligence was being able to kind of, buffer through those storms of emotions when the market is going down, your stocks are going down, things don't look good, and you're like, no, you know what? I hedged myself in this, I did my research, I'm invested in this, the project's strong in the long term, we're going to see returns on it. And then, over time, as we've seen, if you do your due diligence, a lot of people do see returns so long as they are hedged correctly with a reasonable amount of risk and they diversify their portfolio. So yeah, I agree completely. I think it's interesting that you bring that out, because I do often quote to my training to be like, hey, it's all good, you guys, don't worry, the market's down. They're like, no, we're freaking out, what do you mean? I was like, no, guys, just take it easy, be like water, my friend. No, I'm just kidding, I'm not gonna hit you with that.
That's cute. So maybe to shift the focus just slightly before we move on to maybe some more deeper questions, Guru, is you mentioned that MTTM is one of the premier organizations within the Axie Infinity community, and I'm not here to argue against that. I've been in your Discord. The way you guys operate is truly remarkable and something that I think a lot of people can learn from. But maybe just taking a 300,000 foot or 30,000 foot level view of this, what would you say its primary functions, goals, core principles would be of MTTM?
Well, let's start with the core principles, because I think that one of the reasons for success, and it comes from experience because I have built businesses before, is how well established our core principles are. And I don't say that just as the founder. You could speak with anybody in the organization. You could even go on Twitter and probably search MTTM profiles that have MTTM in it. And I saw the other day, everybody just started repping the banner that we made and put out for one day, and everybody started to use it, is that the core principles are very well established in the community. And as I've been working throughout startups, one of the things that I've noticed is that if you take the time, and not just the time, but the focus necessary to really communicate those core principles to, first off, the leadership team, which in the beginning was very small, but then as you go along to the entire organization, and you don't just communicate them by voice, you don't just tell them, but you do it by practice, and you go out there and you are an icon of that, you're a model of that. Then you spend less time micromanaging issues in your organization, and you can take more of that opportunity to then look at the macro side of it, and you can start to make really big innovative shifts. Now, what we're jumping into here is MTTM. What are some of the things, how do we see it? What does it do? Well, first things first, we just started as an Axie community. Everything in the Discord, it's probably taken 6 or 7 remodels now. I think we found that perfect balance as we are at the moment, but I do think that, from Axie Infinity being a source of knowledge, a place where we really help people hands-on, I took what was in my comments when I first started in YouTube, which is, I don't know where I got it, but I got it from a creator saying, hey, interact with your audience. If you're going to make videos and somebody messages or comments on your video, respond to them, interact with them. Those are your people, right? Those are the people you have an opportunity to mesh with. And if you're making genuine content, they're probably like-minded because they're there for a reason. We brought that into the Discord and everybody was interacting. We were all helping each other out. I was knowledgeable, but I wouldn't say I was, perfect. I wasn't the expert that I think we are now at the time. So we were all learning together and we all grew together. And I made sure that throughout all of that, we continued to maintain and perpetuate and just model those core values. And now we're at a point where it's beyond Axie. You've probably seen as you've been in the Discord, we're exploring other blockchain industries, we're exploring other NFT projects. We're starting to see, what else is out there, because Axie may be the gold standard. There's no arguing that, but it's not the end game. And I think that we got to keep our eyes open too, not to see, oh, hey, where do we go after Axie? Because I personally don't think Axie's going anywhere anytime soon, but where do we go as well as Axie? Because it's not just Axie. You know, there's a lot of other ways that people are going to interact with this world-changing technology and movement that we are all a part of. So I think that at the moment we're, funny enough, the remodel will probably explain this. We're kind of like a torii gate, a Japanese traditional torii gate, which was the gate that you see in front of every single shrine, and it signifies the passing of your mundane, regular life into the sacred grounds of where the temple resides. And that's what we're trying to be here, is when people come into MTTM, when they come into not just the Discord, but the community in general, we want people to feel like they've stepped into a ground that is, you know, it is sacred, it is genuine, it is a place where they can go and they can explore this other world in a way that is beneficial and valuable to them. And that's what I think we've communicated it well. I think we've established ourselves well. We have a long road ahead of us. But I think that would be the best way to look at it. Funny enough, I see people throwing gates in the chat.
it's beautiful, right? Because, like, you know, it's one thing to say it, but to actually embody what you're saying is very difficult. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, and tell you and tell chat, is that, you know, I heard of you through word of mouth, through Tendo and Axie Spike, and they were basically raving about how helpful you and your team were. And when we had that discussion, I mean, we're both very busy people, so we basically pinned our discussion for today, essentially, to kind of talk more deeply. But you gave me the time, dude, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. So you opened my point here is that now that I've seen and observed you for about 2 weeks, I feel very good when I tell people to go to your Discord and just observe as well, right? So I see the Don in Wu in chat, right? So he's somebody, I think that you talked to him for some time a few days ago. There's some other of my close content creator friends that I just feel very blessed to say, like, look, rely on this resource, contribute to this community. This is going to be something that I think we can all benefit from, but on top of that, contribute towards, because it's something that basically you're so well established that you guys are doing what we all are trying to do. And to just tap into those resources, to tap into that community, to tap into your vision is truly a blessing. So I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
That's awesome. Well, I'm happy to share it.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm glad you're sharing it. So maybe we can ask some more questions about some, maybe like digging a little bit deeper, right? And I want to preface this with chat saying that about 60% of this interview is for me, is for me to understand NFTGuru better. So some of the questions that you might hear is some of the stuff that I'm really actually interested in. So, and then we're gonna get into the Axie related stuff, you know, in the last 30 minutes or 20 minutes of the stream. And for those people who are just now joining, welcome. For the people who are just now leaving, I appreciate your presence. It's much appreciated, right? So, Guru, we're both very busy people. How do you manage balance in your life? Like, what sort of moments, relationships, experiences do you value? And how do you couple that with the demand of the NFT ecosystem?
Well, let's start by saying I don't think anybody's got it down yet. I'm still even, trying to refine out all those edges, but I do know a couple of things. First off, the NFT world moves really quick, but there is some method to the madness. And that is, if you understand and you keep yourself prepared and organized as at the hot points of the NFT world, you don't have to be, some people are 100% on. They're like always on Twitter, they're always searching for projects, they're always on rarity tools, they're on the marketplace every single day. And, I understand that. I've been passionate about it too. There was one week where I must have spent like 60% of every day just on the Axie marketplace. Like, it was crazy. But I think that you have to find that balance. And once you do, and you also see the patterns in the NFT world, you start to know, okay, where do I put my time within it? Because that's the number one thing. Because you have a life outside of that. Even myself, I've recently gone full time, so I can spend more time on this. You know, I still have a woman in my life. I've still got friends in my life, one of which is in here. He's one of the leadership figures in my community. So quick shout out, Toxic, you're great. And I gotta make sure that that part of me, it doesn't fail to realize itself. You know, this is an important thing that I'm doing, but we are still people outside of this world. So I gotta find that balance immediately, but I gotta know where my priorities lie. And at the moment, even though I do have a life outside of this, this is what I think is world changing first off. And I'm a very vision and passion focused person. And then also what is, you know, accelerating my actualization of myself on a greater scale. Because going throughout our lives day to day is fantastic. You need to live in the moment because you never know, you know, tomorrow's never promised. But I also need to be able to keep my eyes on the bigger picture and know, okay, I have a time commitment that goes towards my brand, goes toward my operation, and goes towards my community. And then I start to break it down, and here's the number one most important tool, and every single person has it. You guys, we all have one of these. Use it. The cell phone is an incredible piece of technology to keep you on point. And now if you have the ability to, I'm not trying to shill out Apple products per se, you can use any piece of device. One of these is good too. Having a form of notification system linked to a calendar that you can go and you can actively go and like schedule yourself in, time block yourself in, make sure that you keep yourself notified of when you need to be doing certain things. Even just that little reminder, it keeps you organized, it keeps you moving. Because there's times when you might get into something and you're like, okay, yeah, let's get this done, and you blocked an hour for it, and you get to that hour, and now all of a sudden, we've all seen this with League, that hour turns into 10 hours, and you're like, oh no, where'd the time go, right? Having a reminder pop up and tell you, hey, look, you had something scheduled at this point, you should be doing this right now. Still, you have to have discipline to make the decision to go do it, don't get me wrong, but it gives you that opportunity to just look at things from a third party and be like, oh yes, I had that plan, and then commit to it. And if you do, myself, I wake up in the morning, I have a system that has not changed for years. I wake up, I meditate, I train, I get my coffee, and I get to everything that I missed communication-wise from the night, especially since I'm around the world now, or the day before after I shut down. So I do that every single morning, and it gives me this sense of like, okay, I've brought myself up to date now. I've got my coffee in me. I'm happy. Let's get on to the next point. And then from there on, I do have some really strict time blocks where I have to focus on branding, a little bit on recording, editing as well. And yes, Spike, if you're in the chat, you're going to give me shit. I know I need to get an editor already. Feel free to show me any if you guys know a good editor. But outside of that, then I get into my operational duties. I always like to keep a lot of my Axie stuff to the mid-afternoon to evening time, because I feel like Axie in the morning is something I don't want to get started in, because once you get in there and something picks up, you get into the rabbit hole, it can just consume your day. So that's the way that I try to keep myself organized from a time standpoint. From like from a passion standpoint or like a priority standpoint, that's just too subjective to touch on. But I do think that my initial introduction to this was a good way to look at it. Have your life, be the person you want to be, don't disregard that. But I do think that you got to know, if you are a big name or you are a big mover in this industry, that we are doing something amazing and that it requires your time. So give it time.
100%. I mean, just to kind of give you my synthesized summary from your explanation, right? It sounds like you have a very controlled regimen, a very premeditated regimen, very thoughtful in your planning and how you're going to organize your day. And something that I'm learning from you here just now is that there's certain activities that can literally take up the entire day if you start with that activity. So breeding Axies or operational side of Axie, you could do that for 12 hours, right?
Easy.
But it sounds like you're taking your discrete tasks, your must-do tasks early in the morning, right? And then you're almost working to the open-ended activities towards the end. And that's something, I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong and basically making that observation, but that's what it sounds like.
No, that's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah. Because I think what I do is I handle a lot of the high priority stuff early on, right? And what that often transpires into is open-ended, never-ending work without handling the small, discrete things like eating properly, like resting well, like meditating, like, you know, all the things that you need to do every day to have a long, like a long career. And I kind of, it's like almost like I could say you could draw a parallel with investing, right? Where it's like most people invest after they save, but you have to flip the paradigm. Did I say that correctly? Yes.
Yes.
But you have to most people invest after they spend. I'm sorry. But the paradigm shift that needs to occur is actually investing before you spend, right? And so you're putting 100%. Forth the investment in your health, your mental, your own well-being first. And that's something the people closest to me can definitely agree that I need to work on more. So moving on to the next question, how would your friends describe you, Guru? If they were here right now and they were to give maybe 3 or 4 characteristics, what do you think they would say about you?
Okay, so I have to preface this by anybody who knew me a decade ago would probably not describe me this way. But I think now, the very first word that anybody would use to describe me would definitely just be, determined. Determined. I've got like a spirit that is a gift and a curse sometimes, because I don't give up on anything. So as I said, that could be definitely a curse as much as this is a gift. You guys don't take that as like, oh, hey, that just means you got it settled. No, life gets hard because you got to really check yourself sometimes. And then I think that most people see me as a very genuine person. One thing that I've had for a long time is that if you text communicate with me and then you speak with me, it doesn't feel much different, because I kind of portray myself and I communicate in a similar manner across all platforms, because I just feel like that's the best way to communicate, is if you understand who you are, who you want to be, and you also understand your own core values and you communicate them honestly. And this takes, everybody might not like to hear this, but this takes facing some of the demons in your closet on a regular basis, is you then have the opportunity to be a truly genuine person and work on the side of you that is the true you. And that's going to allow you to be able to go out and be somebody who people just, they know. Like, they might not know everything about you, but when they think about you being involved in something, you're consistent about it. They know, hey, look, if he comes and does this, he's either A, going to succeed, B, going to fail, and that allows us to be able to understand, does this person need to be involved in it? That's the business guy in me, don't get me wrong. That's how I look at a lot of other people, but it works for yourself too. Understand who you are, be genuine. So I think that I'm a pretty genuine person. I'd like to believe that I am. And then the final part of it, and I hate to say this, but I've just had it shoved in my face so many times that I feel like I gotta just swallow my modesty and say it. I think I'm a pretty intelligent person, and I think most of my friends understand that and they respect that. So when something needs to be done, or you really need somebody to come in and look at something in a complex, analytical, or intelligent way, I tend to do pretty good at that. So I think that my friends would probably call me determined, genuine, and intelligent. And it took me a long time to be able to say that, especially in a public face, because everybody always wants to be overly modest. But hey, be proud of your accomplishments, guys.
No, I mean, it's painfully clear that all of these things are obvious to us. So I'm glad that you have the self-confidence to say those things as well. I mean, just to hear it means a lot to us. So I recently, well, I guess it's not too recent now, I interviewed Jeffrey Zerlin, right, the co-founder of Axie Infinity. I guess it was about 6 weeks ago now, and he has this catchphrase, right? Mercenary versus missionary.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, just taking a high level look, what does that mean to you?
Mercenary versus missionary. I think there's 2 ways to look at it. And the first is just black and white. A mercenary is, they have an objective and they've been paid to accomplish it. And you can look at that from whatever way you want to, but that just one-liner, it captures it. Usually mercenaries are really good at what they do, really, really good. But there has to be some sort of not always monetary, but some sort of physical or substantial objective to it that is going to be the reward or going to be the reciprocation for accomplishing that. And I do think that it is valuable to have little bits of that. But now let's go to the other side. Missionary is, completely void of that. Mercenaries and missionaries both could have some, substantial objective or some intangible motivation to what they do. But I think in the black and white sense, the missionary foregoes most of the monetary aspect of it. They forego that substantial reward, and everything about what they look at, what they do, what they try to accomplish is all about, intangibles, internals, their ideals, and that is their objective. And they want to accomplish it by, all means, but they want to do it in a way that aligns with their intangibles, aligns with their values. A mercenary will probably still have values, but they have their eyes on the prize, and their prize is, as I said, that substantial reciprocation. So they're going to do what needs to be done to do it, while the missionary has their eyes on their prize, and their prize has it's a lot more inward facing most of the time, and they're going to do whatever they can do. And in this case, at times, forego the substantial reciprocation in order to accomplish that. But then, just to bring that together, I think there's a more gray way to look at it, and that is the way that I like to look at people, because I don't believe in absolutes, is that mercenaries are people that tend to be further on the spectrum of that substantial reciprocation, and a lot of the times they are clashing with that internal and intangible side of themselves and those morals and those guiding points in order to satisfy that mercenary in them. While on the missionary side, especially in this world that is a primarily capitalist-driven world, we have a lot of people who are on that internal idealistic and passionate side of, focus and mission direction, but they also clash with the other side that is more of a substantial reciprocation. They may struggle with money. They may have an inability to go and realize their dream or go and make a difference in the way that they want because they do not have that monetary benefit or that monetary fuel to help realize that. And I think that, when it comes down to it, that's how I look at it, at least.
No, I mean, that's beautiful. I guess, a balance is always needed to be struck between these two, right? Because, one may be worried about external impact versus internal, and you can't really achieve external impact without having at least some sort of internal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's clear that you're a principle-oriented person, right? So I guess when you're reflecting back on this previous question, missionary versus mercenary, now, do you think, let me just take a step back, right? So part of how we, as an organization at Mystic Scholars, the way we operate is that we try to create a mission statement for every overarching principle and even the smallest goal, like the smallest project, you could say, right? And then we say okay, if this is the mission statement, how does our implementation and execution come back to this? And if it doesn't, what are we iterating on? The execution or our mission statement, right? And so my question for you is, this journey of balancing missionary versus mercenary, is this something that you basically visualize on the onset? Or is this something that's dynamic and that's changing throughout your journey? Are you leaning towards one side or the other in the beginning? Or is it something that's just you're 50-50 or whatever the breakdown might be? I mean, it might be a silly question, but maybe take a stab at it if you want to.
No, well, I want to start by saying that the way that you structure those, I'm going to call them projects because it's kind of the project manager in me comes out in that point. It's really important because I think that the mission statement is very valuable, but that you need to be able to implement it in a way that works, or it's just never going to come to fruition. And I realized that too. I realized that in the businesses that I built. I realized that as well in the project that we're currently working on, from myself and my brand to MTTM to Axie Infinity and the metaverse as a whole. And I think that when it comes down to it, I'd like to believe that I'm probably a bit more of a missionary than a mercenary. I'm ENFJ A-type personality, so I'm all about vision and going on about things that I believe in and things that I want to see happen in the world. I'm no stranger to the shonen side of growing up with all these stories and seeing the heroes, and I think that the hero archetype does speak to me very well. So I would say that I probably weigh a little bit more of a missionary than mercenary. but the business guy in me. And it's really valuable that I spent so many years in business, because it gave me such a strong sense of knowing how to make this happen, is that I need to know where I need to see the mercenary in me succeed so that the missionary in me can continue to survive. Because the missionary, unfortunately, doesn't always have the ability to go and do what they need to do if the mercenary is not succeeding. So you got to balance it. But yeah, 100% more missionary than mercenary.
That's beautiful. So this is I know we talk, we could talk for hours, but I definitely want to maybe touch base on one more personal question, and then we can move on to Axie-centric kind of questions.
Okay.
So give us a sense of Guru when things aren't just up and to the right. You know, like what are maybe could you share with us like one of your hardships that you experienced and how you might have overcame that? Give us some background into what that hardship was and how you might have circumvented that event or events.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's been the fair share, for sure. I don't think that I've hit any like catastrophic things yet, knock on wood. But I've had to deal with quite a few, because nothing is a smooth sail. You got to deal with things all the time. I think that one of the biggest things I had to deal with was the crossroads of choosing where I go. When I was, as I said, balancing a couple of different businesses as well as my personal life, I wasn't able to give enough time to any of it. And I felt like I was still performing, but not to the degree that I wanted to in any of them. So it was a huge moment for me, not easy moment, because I had built both businesses essentially, or all three actually. So I was passionately connected to all of them, but I realized, I said to myself, change has got to be made, or you're just gonna, first off, you're burnt out. You're working like 18 to 19 hours a day. You're not sleeping. Like, it's just dumb. I was a zombie. And then second off, I'm not going to be able to really see any of them succeed to the degree that I want them to if I don't make a decision. So I think that was probably one of the hardest moments. And it went on for almost 4 weeks. I was just, I wasn't really performing as well as I wanted to in any of those departments. And I saw that there was a huge opportunity loss because of that. So I would have to say that was one of the big issues that I dealt with. And I think that a lot of people may when coming into the metaverse in general, because everybody's got their lives, right? Like, you could never make a living doing what we were doing now, even 2 years ago. It didn't exist. So all of these people are now coming into this, and some of these people their objective is to make this full time. It's to make it their career. So I do think that other people might be able to relate to that. But I would say that you gotta take time. I ended up actually going out. I took time off. I went out on a bit of like a personal vacation. I went and did some hikes. I did a lot of meditating. The things that allow me to step away from what I was doing that was keeping me busy, and be able to look at things and understand, what do I really want? And from there, I was able to understand, okay, how do I realize that? And one of them was letting go. I had to let go of some of my objectives. I had to put my mind, focus on the right things. And funny enough, at the same time, I was having some personal issues in my life, which when it rains, it pours, right? So it was quite a bit clashing down on it. And around that time was when I had made the decision to disconnect my brand from Method to the Mythos and take on NFTGuru and pursue the community, officiating it as like a full organization. We're now an official blockchain entertainment organization, and we're going to be able to go about realizing that title as well as we can. And I'm sure that you guys will see many, many announcements going forward. So I will tell you a bit more about that. But yeah, that was probably one of the hardest points. But we have things happen all the time. Like any community, you have some bad actors come in. We had some people come in and try and like scam in the community for a bit. And it was really tough to try and weed them out too, because I'm sure you can imagine how much, there's a decent amount of financially sound people in the community. So they have that, they had that idea as well, and they go, oh, hey, let's get in here. There's a lot of trust. There's a lot of genuine relationships. Let's try and take advantage of it. And it was tough. We had to put our foot down. There, we had a little bit of political unrest. And the way that we handled it is we just kept our core values intact with every decision that we made. If we did, then when we communicated it to the community why we did something, we were able to communicate it in a way that made sense because the community understood the core values. And if we align the changes to that, Well, as I said, nothing's perfect, has political unrest, but we did see it end up getting overcome, and now we're a lot healthier as a result. So, yeah, I hope that that gives a bit of an idea,
No, I mean,
you
that's
know,
good.
the hardest and some of the smaller ones as well.
Yeah, great. I mean, it sounds like basically, first of all, it didn't sound like you did something extraordinary to overcome it. You were just basically being yourself, returning to like the mindfulness approach that you practice on a daily basis. I mean, this is what it sounds like. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, Guru, but it sounds like the habits you built up over the, in some cases decades, allowed you to remain composed and in a way see things in a less emotional way and more pragmatically, to allow you to kind of circumvent the events that you experienced, particularly with the MTTM rebranding and all of those other kind of bad actor experiences that you had. So, okay, so basically, we'll just spend the last like 15 or 20 minutes or so talking about Axie. Okay.
Oh, baby.
So, let's go ahead and just dive right in, right? So I guess like, correct me if I'm wrong. This is all I'm learning as we go, but like I consider you and your team a meta creating breeding organization, at least a segment of this, right? From my preliminary research, looking at the parents that you guys breed, it seems like you guys have like 5 or 6 generations of breeding before you actually get the quote printers you want to that you get. So my question is to you, like, first of all, could you just describe the overall process, and like I can follow up with some more specific questions afterwards.
Yeah, of like, okay, so first off, while trying to be as modest as possible, yes, I believe that we have made a few meta changes with some of our breeding. I myself, if you guys have seen my video, I was the very first person to finally breed a full speed Dusk Tri-Spiker, which is 48 speed. It's a monster. And ironically enough, it came out of Big Yak, which I love Big Yak, so like that is deadly. You can search it up on the marketplace. There's full transparency there. If you go and put all those parts in and you bring the speed up to 48, you will see as the lowest ID my boy Biggie. He looks awesome. He's a white Big Yak with pink cheeks and a robin face, and he slaps. Now, that being said, we have had other things as well. We were not the ones who created the Dust Terminator, but we were one of the very early figures in it as well. Plus One, who I'm sure everyone on Twitch here is no stranger to, was one of the very first people to ever really get in and start to develop that as a real breed pool. And I think that he was one of the people that came to like the 99, 100% faster than anyone else. And it's because there's a system to it. Outside of just calling, types and different kinds of builds that we've made, I think that there's a lot to be done in the game from a theory crafting standpoint, and it goes beyond just building Axies. I'll just leave that as a bit of a teaser, but we have somebody in our community who's looking at the game from even more than just a breeding Axies standpoint. But as a breeder, I think that the meta crafting and the meta developing side of it, being able to look generations ahead, plan it. By the way, guys, it's going to take sheets. Stay organized or you're going to lose it. And that is what allows us to be able to do that. So yeah, I would say that it definitely is something that I think that we do. And now I know what you're probably going to ask me coming up. I'm 100%. You're going to wonder, how do we make it work, right?
Yeah.
How do we make it work?
Yes.
What do we think of? What do we prioritize?
What do I need to copy from you and emulate from your community to do exactly what you're doing, bro? Tell me the secret sauce.
And so I'm going to tell you there's one piece you can't emulate yet. So I'm sure that nobody would be surprised by saying this, but we do have a few secret tools. Yes, we do use some secret tools, but they're not anything that you guys couldn't do on your own. I would say that the biggest things you got to do first off is take the time to understand the game thoroughly. Understand exactly what is taking place in the meta among Axies. Look at shifts. Watch the floor too. Never, ever underestimate the floor, because there are some gold mine Axies that come out of that. One of my, I think my number one beast Axie that I have in my team right now, that I don't play as much anymore thanks to the top meta shifting as it has, but it came right off the floor. And I was like, no way, this thing's an absolute beast, holy. And the same can be said for some of the builds that we've thought of. Like when I I can't tell you what it is yet because I don't want to give away the secret sauce, but I'm building a new Axie, and you guys are going to love it once I have it out. But it actually came as an inspiration between an Axie that I play now. Oh no, Fujin, please don't. I see, by the way, Fujin's reporting me to the devs. I got a call with Jihos in like a week. I don't want that to get canceled. But yeah, I would say that, you know, you've gotta look at those things, and you gotta keep yourself open to it, and you gotta stay knowledgeable about what's happening too. I'm a breeder, and some breeders just go out of their way to be like, oh, I don't gotta play the game anymore. I make so much money breeding. And that is the wrong outlook, because if you have that outlook on things, you are going to lose that cutting edge you have on understanding where the game is going and being able to breed to that movement. Because if you do not, you're gonna fall behind. I hate to say this specific circumstance because everybody, I'm sure there's some people who are still scarred by it, but all those people breeding pures when the PvP changes hit, they felt that firsthand. And I don't want to say we anticipated all of it, but I had been speaking in the previous bull run, and I said, look guys, we're going to get to the point where all of these Axies, because we're going to have an oversaturated market, are going to lose significant value in the bottom line. And we need to start looking at the meta and looking at PvP capable Axies and breeding to them, because if we don't, by the time that shift takes place, we're going to be behind, and we're going to have to work to catch up. But then that shift did take place, and that was when we were able to put ourselves in the position that we are now, where, you know, we've got alien roamer, we call him dark roamer. If you guys, like, I'm sure that 60% of the people in here have bought at least one Axie from him. That guy breeds like nobody's business. He's like, you know, he's like Sando level. But there's a lot of us here who are breeding at that level now. And those are the kind of things you got to know. So let's just recap it here, because I know I went on a lot of things. I touched on a lot of topics. I think the biggest thing is you have to be playing to a certain degree or interacting with the current play style of the game. If this even consists of you watching streams to stay educated, do it. Because you need to know how the game's being played, what people are looking at, where the meta's going, some of the subtle shifts, and some of the really awesome floor Axies that come into gameplay and make it right to the top of the leaderboard. And then you've got to look at what you have the ability to do, because not everybody can come in and be like, hey, I'm going to breed and lose money for 4 generations to get an Axie. Sometimes you got to do things that are a little bit more like, let's say, unorthodox and not business savvy in order to be a meta crafting breeder. So you've got to have the portfolio to sustain that. So if you're, you know, rotating a couple of ETH maybe, or a few breeds, and you're averaging like 20 or 30,000 SLP every month, you might not be in a position to try and do that, but you can look at some subtle changes, like throwing a beast part nobody's seen on an aqua, or, you know, taking a bug and making it something it's not, or etc., right? Doing dusk reptiles, things like that. You can make those kind of shifts as well, and you can shift metas yourself. So stay aware of it, stay reasonable and realistic about it, and then also be able to go out and be a little courageous. It's like you said, you know, you've got to have that composure when you're an investor, and breeding to future metas, they are going to need to have some composure, because when you go to morph eggs and none of it came out the way you wanted to because you are just chopping Axies together that should have never bred, you're gonna have to be like, oh wow, I just put all of that out, lost all of that profit, but keep your eyes on the end goal. Whereas you go back in, you have a few other chains that you are trying to put together to clean, and you'll be able to continue to breed with the correct objective in place and surfing the market to find the cleaners that you need to make it happen. So let me tell you, discipline and composure is a big part of it. And I think that a lot of people here probably understand that that is a big part of crypto in general. So I think most of us will be good in that department.
Beautiful. I mean, I just want to touch on maybe one last thing about this particular topic, or this question rather. So you mentioned generations may occur and you don't get the result, at least intermediate result, that you're hoping for. Has there ever been a time where the end result wasn't what you were looking for, or did you always arrive to that at some point?
At the moment, usually. Sometimes it's taken longer than I needed to, and that is obviously unfortunate in and of itself. But usually, if you've thought of it thoroughly, you aren't going to get something that you can at least work with. But what I can say is that I have had a few breeding objectives, some of them not even meta breaking, some of them straight up meta. And by the time I get to that point where I have, you know, the 97 to 99, 100% breeders that I want, I'm I'm almost behind the curve. I feel like, okay, this isn't a really good chain for me to be in. The market might have been a little saturated. Maybe it had fallen out of meta due to a new adaptation. And I'm at a point now where I've got to make a decision to change out of it. So yeah, that's definitely happened. But as far as a lot of my meta, like theory crafting goes, it's been pretty good so far. You know, the Disable Source is a banger. The Dust Tri Spike seems to do pretty well. I'm sure you can attest to that, Mystic.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's not bad, right? I've got another one in the works, as I said, that I think is going to shock people, and I have a new partner with it that aligns. It's kind of like a variation of the Dust Tri Spiker that I think you're gonna love it. When I make this new one, I'm probably about like 3 weeks, two to 3 weeks away from it. If everything goes well, maybe only like less than 2, but I doubt it.
Well, you tell me the price, and I'll tell you how much I love it. All right. So we just have like maybe a couple to few more questions, and then we'll have to call it here. What are some things that you think Sky Mavis is doing right that you would love to see more of?
Okay, that's a really, really important question. So I think one of the things they're doing, which is great because it's breaking the paradigm of this entire industry, is staying community focused. I think that's really important. And that goes as far as, you know, when you think about the project, the NFT project of Axie Infinity in general, and you relate it to other ones, I know not everybody here might be as familiar with traditional, you know, profile picture or utility NFT projects, but you need to have a way to give back to the community. You need to have that, you know, long-term value to stake your time and effort and money into that project in order for a community to develop and be committed about staying with it. And Axie does have that. You know, they have the staking benefits, they have all of the treasury factors to it, they have a lot of ways they're going to give back, but that also comes throughout the roadmap being actualized. So I would say that their community-focused aspect of the game is huge, and one of the biggest reasons why they are a success, because it's kind of like I mentioned, right? You have the core values set, and you communicate them to the people who are the leadership figures in the community. When you look at a lot of the influencers, creators, a lot of the big names, now of course there's outliers, but when you look at them, you see that they try to communicate these same values. You know, they're community focused, they're going out, they're helping people, they want to see this world get impacted for the better as a result of what they're doing. And that's huge, because then throughout these storms, like we're going through right now, no arguing, we are in a slow market right now in comparison to where we were, and we are dealing with a few troubles. You know, we need to have that passion. We need to understand that there's that light at the end of the tunnel, and money's not going to do that. So if you're just like, hey, look, you're in this, you can make some bank, we're in a slow time, you're not making enough bank right now, they're not going to stick around. But when you have that community focus side of it, like, you know, there was a big storm in the Philippines just recently. I think it might have only ended today. The first thing that was on my mind when that happened is, oh man, I got to check in with all my scholars. I got to check in with my community. I got to like figure out, hey, are you guys okay? One of my really, really close leadership scholars in my community actually lived right in one of the places that was impacted worse. And I said, hey, how are things looking? Like, do you guys think you need some relief help? Should we run a charity event through MTTM and get some funds over there, get some relief? He's like, no, I think we're okay. But that's the thing that came to mind, right? Even though we're in a bear market, and I think that that's something that's really, I'd say it's unique to Axie because it's established. Some other industries, some other projects have it, but it's kind of quasi. In Axie, you really feel it. So I think that that's one of the biggest things they're doing right, for sure. And I think, you know, on that point, I have a feeling I know what you're going to ask me next, which is maybe what I could suggest. But for the time being, I'll wrap that question up with that point right there, and we'll see where it goes from there.
No, please. I mean, proceed. I mean,
All right. No, I definitely will. So now, what do I think we need? Well, I think the biggest thing we need is we need a little bit more diverse support and engagement from the team. Right now, you know, there seems to be a pretty focused engagement, focusing on a lot of the different, a lot of the specific well-known leaders, creators, drivers, movements, you know, the economic factors that are in place, Battle V2, things like this. And I think that this may be something that they need to diversify a little bit more, because we're growing to be bigger than that now. Now it's not just, oh, hey, how many scholarships you got? You know, now it's not, hey, you know, the Watch to Earn stream is popping off, it's great. And it's not, oh, wow, we're making really big money. Now it's more than that. Now it's about, you know, future outlooks on the space as a whole, some of the networking and developing partnership facts that can come with Axie Infinity as well, being the organization that they are, how that is coming along, engagement for diverse creators as well. And I'm not a watch to earn creator. I'm a YouTuber though, so I don't stream. I know there's a few other ones out there that have come to me knowing that I'm not one of those people and said, hey, how do I make it, right? Like, if I'm not giving people scholarships, how do I make it? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure there's answers to these questions, but I'm not the only person who's going to be able to bring that to you. We need that support from the team as well. And then I think the final thing that really, really needs to be like really looked at from the team, and I don't want to say this in a way of like, oh, I think it's 100% right, but I think that the team should look maybe to having a little bit more transparency in areas that don't jeopardize the roadmap. Because I do think that one of the biggest issues that I have brought to my attention is that people are they're unaware, they're unknown, they don't know, right? And this allows for an incredible amount of FUD to develop. This has like really, really strong moral implications on the community. And I understand when you are pioneering this kind of technology, you cannot just be telling everybody what you're doing all the time, because there is the jeopardization of the systems themselves that you have to take into consideration. There is the fact that you're a gold standard and you do want to maintain your IP as a business. Totally understand that. But there's also the point of you need to understand what the community needs and you need to give it to them. And I think at this point, outside of diverse engagement, one of the things the community needs most is a little bit more transparency or interaction and communication on the front of, how are we going to be changing the ecosystem? Are there plans to it? Where do we think it's going to come into play? At what time? Give us even a tentative timeline to work with so that at least people have that light continuing to shine at the end of the tunnel. Because I've had even people in my community just say, hey, look, I can't handle it anymore. The economy's having some issues, SLP's going down, and I can understand that concern, right? Like, I'm in it for the long run, I'm still building, but not everybody has that means. But I think if we had a little bit more communication on where things are going, and we could bring some tangibles and some numbers to the table for people, we would have a lot less people in that mindset. And people would start to be able to support it and say, oh, no, dude, you gotta believe, right? Because we need more than faith. We need to believe it. And in order to believe it, you do have to see it a little bit.
Beautiful. So I guess you really emphasize kind of how Axie Infinity, one thing that they're doing well, or Sky Mavis in general is doing well, is their faith that they're placing on community-driven growth. And so what would you say, and we're approaching the end of our discussion here, guys, so I appreciate all your patience. So what would you say that the Axie Infinity community is doing right, maybe outside of MTTM, just in general? And then same question, like follow-up is maybe what's something that we can improve on?
As the community, like from the community's point of view?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I don't think faith gets that question answered. So I'm going to stay away from that, because I think what we need some, some actionables. So I think a few things that we should do in the community. First off, and this is idealistic. Like, I know that I'm going to say this, and the main players in this issue, it's going to fall on deaf ears, but I got to say it anyway. Guys, we have a part to play in the stability and the longevity of this ecosystem. And we need to make decisions at times to forego temporary opportunistic gains for the health of the long run of our industry and our ecosystem. There are people I've talked to who are like, yo, I just want to I want to dump like 80 of these Axies into the market of this one type and just blow that market up, like completely oversaturate it and dump it. And I'm like, but why though? Oh, well, because I really want to make that money before it's gone. And I'm like, are you being real with me here? Because if you were to take the numbers and you were to lay it out on the table, you have way more gains coming for maintaining the health of that in the long run than you would from just over committing on it and dumping it and just doing whatever you can to make money before someone else could. And it comes to the point of managers too. There are some managers out there that are like, yo, I'm just going to buy floor Axies, or I'm going to buy like unsuitable Axies, get people on them, and if I don't like the person, I won't even pay them. And I'm like, you guys, no, this is not the way that you're going to see long-term gain. That's not business. That's just hustling. And hustling has to meet business at some point, right? So yeah, no, I think that as a community, guys, we got to understand that we play a much bigger part in the health of this project and this ecosystem than we may think. it takes only a series of ripples to move the ocean, and we are each a ripple in that ocean. So just know that what you do has an effect on everything around you, and make sure that it's a good effect. Don't go about it just looking at yourself and being like, hey, how can I capitalize the best? And this goes for everyone: managers, scholars, goes to people who are creators, community leaders, and even the team themselves, because they're all community members.
Profound. We are all ripples in this ocean. That's well said, Guru. So we had a few maybe other questions, but we're approaching an hour of time, so we'll definitely have to get you on next time. I think that you are giving away a Axie team. Am I hearing this correctly? On your
Yeah.
I think I have a link here, and maybe while I do that, you can maybe explain a little bit more of what that looks like and how that promotion works.
Yeah, for sure. So, yes, I am giving away a team. And for anybody who knows my early content, it's an exact replica of the team that I played in season 16 and 17 that brought me to the top 300, to the top 1% player. It is my two nut beast, my double nut Ronin dual blade beast. It's my awesome sponge Nemo that I love, and it is my leaf bug tank. So it is an exact replica of my team, which is awesome. But the way that it's working, and actually, no, let me give the reason behind it at first. I started that giveaway at the very first day that I had made the decision to officiate MTTM as an official organization. So for me personally, it was kind of like, hey, I want to make this milestone. I want to hit a bang. But then another part of it was I had been feeling like, I got so much support, especially on the content side, that I wasn't able to keep up with it. Like, I remember being like, oh, hey guys, we hit 1,000, I'm going to do like a giveaway, and I gave away a shirt. And like, by the time I had given away that shirt, I was already over 2,000 subscribers. And I'm like, whoa, okay, this is moving quick. And then everybody's like, oh, hey, you got to give away, an Axie at 5,000. I was like, yeah, totally. I remember on Twitter, I actually said, hey, screenshot it. I'm going to give away an Axie at 5,000. And when we hit 5,000, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a mix of like, the Rhea interview or whatever it was, me going full time. But I went from like 4,500 to like 7,000 in no time. And I'm like, whoa, I haven't even given away an Axie yet. So then I was like, hey, we got to do this right. Let's go. Let's buy a team. I think I spent about like 0.6, a little bit over 0.6 Ethereum, something around that, like 5.6 Ethereum, 0.5, 0.6 Ethereum. And I was like, hey, you know what? It's a few $1,000s, but I want to do it. I think I got to do it. I'm going to anticipate by the time I give this away, I'll probably be making my way up to like 10,000 subscribers, which I just broke 8, so you never know. And I just wanted to give back. So I am now going to be giving away an entire Axie team, because rather than just an Axie, an individual who doesn't have a team might get that Axie and be like, okay, what do I do now? Like, right, like now what? But with a team, you have the tools to get started. And whoever earns that team, I don't know, it could be even a community member of mine, scholar, it could be a random person, because the way I have it working is that by liking, retweeting, and of course just interacting with the post and following myself in the community page, MTTM, you get an entry into the giveaway. Now, also by being present at the stream, because not all of my YouTube subscribers have Twitter, you will also get another chance, another entry into the giveaway. So if you do both, yes, you get 2. And I think that a lot of the people who are going to do both probably be people who are supporters of mine. So these will be people who may get it, but whoever gets it, I'm going to welcome into the MTTM family, give them the tools to go and be successful on their own. And if they have a full team, they can do it. So yeah, it's going to be awesome. You got the link there, so you guys just go like it, follow myself and the MTTM page, retweet it, and tag your friends too, because it's great. The more people who could potentially have a shot at this, the better. It's a really big opportunity. I'm going to make sure that it doesn't come loaded. I want it to go to somebody who needs it, and then make sure that you join the stream on Saturday, and I'll make sure to post that on Twitter. But if you join that stream as well, you get 2 entries, so you have a better chance to win.
Shoot your shot, baby. Okay, last question, Guru. Okay, last question. Yep. Before we conclude. So you and I are about the same age.
Yep.
There's plenty of people in this chat who are about 5, 7, 10 years younger than us, right? You're now speaking to your former self, right? And you're observing this tidal wave called NFT gaming and just NFTs in general coming through. for people, whether they have scholarships or not, they're in this community, they're watching this stream, they want to know, what can I do to contribute more to the success of this community-driven growth? What would you say to your former self 5, 10 years ago?
That's a great question. I love it. I always like these what would you say to your former self questions, right? Because I think that they get really deep. I would say make the most of it. But I would say that as a bit of a, preface to saying make the most of it by doing your absolute best to be as completely involved and understanding of what you're doing. So let me give you guys a one-liner from my teacher. Now, this, funny enough, my teacher's no longer alive. My idol for the longest time has been Miyamoto Musashi. He is a famous swordsman from back in the feudal era, and he's written plenty of books, lots of which are actually on my bookcase right here. And he says that one cannot understand the art that they are studying without taking the time to delve deeply into the reasoning of the study. And that would be exactly what I would communicate to somebody. I would say, we're in a super complex movement. Everything that we are part of, it's not as simple as, I hit the buy button and I get an Axie. There is a huge background, blockchain interconnected, technologically advanced system that makes all of this work. And if you have the opportunity to get involved in this life, world-changing movement, go and learn everything you can about it. If this means jumping onto Google and learning about Web3 or how to develop, or not even how to develop, but how the inner blockchain system works, what nodes are, understand it, because you've got to be doing your best here in order to realize it and make the most of it. So that's what I would do. And I got to hit you guys with the line from Musashi, because Musashi Sensei is one of my idols. And I like to make my idols people who are no longer alive, because my opinion of them can never be changed, because they don't exist to change it in the world that I live in.
Beautiful. Guru, it's been an absolute pleasure. You have been such a great guest. I hope to have you on the stream many times after this. I know for a fact that, Mystic Scholars and MTTM, we're going to have a bright future together. So I really am optimistic for our journey. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you having me. It's been great. This was I love chatting with you, Mystic. As I said, the first time we chatted, I was like, this guy, me and him, we speak the same language.
What was that line you said about lyrics and song? And you said,
oh yeah.
Can you just say?
I'm all about lines.
Yeah.
I'll say it one more time.
Yeah.
I like it. So this is my philosophy as a businessman, by the way. And for anybody here who's aspiring business person or entrepreneur, remember these. Do not make music with people who don't understand and speak your lyrics. If people do not understand what makes you tick, if people don't understand the reason behind why you make the music you do, don't make music with them, because it's not going to work out.
Beautiful. All right, Guru. Well, thanks again. Everyone, please make sure you check out his promotion that he's getting away for this Axie team. This is just a small grain of the amount of charitable kind of givings that Guru and his team have, right? I recommend you go to his Discord, their team's Discord, MTTM, just lurk, be helpful, be observant, be curious, ask Google questions, and then come back and meditate, and then ask people questions. These are very knowledgeable people, and more than likely people love helping out other folks that try to help themselves first. And so definitely be respectful of all the people's time in there, because this is a very unique opportunity we have before. Imagine this community a year from now, MTTM, how dominant they will be and how much of a resource Guru and the rest of his team are. So take advantage of this, be hungry, be curious. Go ahead, guys, go get that bread. All right.
Awesome.
So that's all I have, Guru. Thanks for your time, Barhan.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me. I will definitely see you next time. All right.
Take care, bud. Peace.
Bye.